The San Diego Comic-Con is back, and after 2 years of online events, it's about time we got some in-person awesomeness. Seriously, the schedule for CDCC 2022 is packed, and it's got a couple of surprises up its sleeves. Sure, you've got regulars like Marvel and DC attending, but a certain breathtaking actor is also making his way back. That's right, Keanu is joining SDCC to talk about BRZRKR. Here's everything you need to know. First off, the Matrix star is actually bringing his own comic to the con. You heard that right. Keanu's talents aren't limited to just his on-screen performances. Not many people know this, but the man is also a pretty accomplished writer. He's actually published 2 art books with his partner and co-wrote an entire comic book in 2021. The comic is actually super popular too. It's called BRZRKR, and it's the property that Reeves is bringing to SDCC. The actor and his team have a whole panel scheduled for the series, and it's got fans hyped. The official title for the event is Keanu Reeves BRZRKR: The Immortal Saga Continues, and it'll focus on the finale of the comic book and what lies ahead. Keanu's been promising some exciting things, and a ton of people are going to be attending. That includes Reeves himself, his co-writer and co-creator Matt Kindt, and screenwriter Mattson Tomlin, Matt Gagnon, Eric Harburn, and Christy will round out the crew. Those 3 guys are executives from Boom Studios, the publisher behind BRZRKR. With that many important people in attendance, you can bet there's some major news in store. The whole thing is scheduled to take place between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, July 22nd. And judging by where these guys are holding the panel, they're expecting a pretty big turnout. Don't expect BRZRKR to be sidelined in the corner. Nope, Reeves is making sure his comic book takes center stage. In fact, the panel is scheduled for one of the biggest venues at the con. You've probably heard of the Hall H at SDCC. That's where the biggest pop culture players come together to hold their panels, conferences, and reveal events. We're talking about properties like Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and The Walking Dead. Yep, each of those franchises will be making an appearance at the con this year. The lineup is a who's who of geek culture, which means one thing: if you want to be there for the biggest announcements, you've got to make your way to Hall H. And when you're dealing with an actor as beloved as Keanu Reeves, the main hall is basically the only place you can put him in. You'll definitely have heard of Keanu's internet fame. The man is such a nice guy, he's become a meme. Couple that with dozens of iconic roles, and you've got a guaranteed audience for anything he's involved in. The panel's title literally starts with Reeves' name, so you can tell the organizers want to push the actor's involvement in the project. That's going to attract a ton of attention, and Hall H is basically the only place big enough to accommodate all of Reeves' fans. That's great news for the BRZRKR team because it means they're gonna be in the spotlight, and the comic is definitely worth it. This is actually the first time in a while that a comic book publisher has managed to nab a slot in Hall H. Now, you might think that's because of Keanu's star power, but the franchise he's bringing to the convention is no joke. It's actually one of the biggest comic book properties outside of the Marvel and DC fandoms, and we totally get why there's so much hype around it. Take it from us, if you haven't checked out BRZRKR yet, you're missing out. Written by Reeves and Kindt, and featuring art by Garney, the story follows an immortal warrior named B near the tail end of his 80,000-year journey. B works for the CIA in return for knowledge about his powers. He just wants to end his immortality, and that's where the first issue of BRZRKR picks up. If you couldn't tell, this is a pretty brutal comic book. It doesn't pull any punches, and if that sounds awesome to you, we definitely recommend checking it out. The whole project raised $1.4 million on Kickstarter, and since then it's become the highest-selling original comic of the 21st century. BRZRKR is a major hit, and the franchise is attracting a ton of interest from Netflix. Get this, there are 2 adaptations in the works. Netflix isn't kidding around. As Reeves and company work towards their blockbuster finale, the streaming giant has announced that they're developing 2 different projects. One is a live-action movie starring Reeves, and the other is an anime adaptation of the comic. That's pretty crazy, and it just goes to show how powerful BRZRKR is as a story. The creators haven't even wrapped up the series, and it's already sprouted a whole franchise. The whole situation around the comic is why we're sure the panel is going to be stuffed with the news. There's going to be talk about the upcoming final issue, for sure, but we're also definitely going to get into the adaptations. That's because Mattson Tomlin, the screenwriter on the panel, is working on the script for the Netflix movie. He's definitely going to share a few updates, or he wouldn't be showing up for SDCC. And the movie looks super cool. Netflix has promised that it'll be R-rated, and Reeves says they're not going to be doing a straight cover of the comic story. According to the Star, the creators want to keep the main characters the same, but they're going to shake up a bunch of things around him. It's basically going to be a fresh experience for the fans, and the anime is going to go even further out. Netflix is currently looking for an animation studio to head up the project, and they're offering a ton of creative control. Reeves actually wants other writers to do their own thing with the animated version of the story. His vision is for a franchise that always stays fresh, and it's got fans super excited for what's in store. That's why the hype levels for the panel are through the roof. But there's one more thing fans are hoping for. So the event is supposed to be about the Immortal Saga of BRZRKR continuing, right? Well, some comic readers think that it could mean we're getting a sequel to the books. That's right, they want a follow-up to BRZRKR that sticks to the medium of comics. This panel would be the perfect place to make an announcement like that. So we've got our fingers crossed. Let's hope Reeves and his team deliver. With BRZRKR covered, here's some more news about what Keanu's up to. First up, Reeves will be hosting a Formula One docuseries for Disney+. The show will reportedly be split into 4 parts and will focus on Formula One managing director Ross Brawn. For those of you who don't know, Brawn bought the Honda team in 2009 and rebranded it as Brawn GP. That team went on to secure 2 championships, so Ross knew what he was doing. In fact, the F1 man is expected to take part in the series alongside Reeves. Other notable people involved include Ferrari chairman Luca Di Mattezemolo and drivers Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello. Apparently, Reeves heard Ross Brawn's story and found it so interesting that he had to make a documentary about it. We'll watch anything with Keanu in it, so count us in. As of right now, the series doesn't have a release date, but it's expected to hit Disney Plus in fall of 2023. Secondly, it looks like the actor is interested in playing Batman. Reeves is actually going to be voicing the character in an animated film. It's called DC League of Super Pets, and it might just be where Keanu makes his mark. The Canadian actor has said in interviews that he loved voicing the world's greatest detective, but he didn't stop there. He went on to say that he'd be open to playing an older live-action version of the Batman down the road. It would be pretty crazy if that happened, but we're sure DC fans would be down for it. That said, the chances of this happening soon are very low. Robert Pattinson is crushing it as the Batman right now, and Michael Keaton is going to play an older version of the Dark Knight in The Flash. Never say never when Keanu's involved, though. And finally, an old Keanu Reeves movie is being re-released in black and white. We're sure we don't need to tell you that Keanu has made a ton of classics in his time. With films like The Matrix and John Wick under his belt, the actor is basically an icon. If you're a hardcore fan, though, you'll also know that Keanu has made some weird movies. Here's a deep cut for you. The cult classic Johnny Mnemonic is getting a re-release, and it's got old school fans hyped. The neo-noir movie is coming out on Blu-ray almost 30 years after its original release in 1995. This time, it'll be packing a black and white version for people who want it in a different experience. We haven't gotten official confirmation, but the movie was listed on an online site called MovieZing. The new release is titled Johnny Mnemonic in black and white, and it'll come out this August. That's a wrap for this video. Are you excited about the BRZRKR panel? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one!